So are we designed to be kind? You may or may not believe that. So in today's episode, we're going to explore that question and learn about a logical system that helps us to better understand our own nature and human design. Stay tuned.
It's time to be kind with Marley Q.
Because the time to be kind to ourselves, each other, and the world is now.
Welcome, friends. Thank you so much for making time to be kind with Marley Q and our special guest, Parker, today. She is the founder of Soul Aligned Wellness. She's a licensed marriage and family therapist with specialized training in maternal mental health, EMDR therapy, and quantum human design, which I cannot wait for us to dive into and learn more about. Welcome to the show, Cynthia Mendez Tamayo.
Hi.
Welcome. Thank you so much for making time to be kind.
Of course. I'm so excited to speak on this topic.
Yes. So first, I'm going to put you on the spot. What's a Parker? Do you know what a Parker is? Because I just referred to you as a Parker, and those listening are Parkers too. Do you know what a Parker is?
Someone who performs random acts of kindness.
Yes.
Yes, did I get that right?
The word, we have to flip one word, but yes, you got it. You got it. I put all of my guests on the spot here just to test the lingo. Is it landing? So a Parker is a person that performs acts of random kindness, right? People like you and me and us listening who are out in the world, being that spark of change that we wish to see in the world. The purpose of this podcast is to inspire and influence and unite more Parkers so that we really can shift our world and our culture into one that's more kind and of service to one another. So thank you for being that spark and making that time today.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, I want to just kind of jump right into it. I would love your take on wellness and specifically soul aligned wellness. What does that mean?
So the idea behind Soul Aligned Wellness is that wellness is not a one size fits all type of experience, right? And I think that when we talk about self-care and when we talk about we as a collective, right, there seems to be a lot of ideas on how to do it right or wrong. But this idea of it being soul aligned is that we each have a very particular way of taking care of ourselves and of others, right? The people that are around us. And if we do this in a way that is soul aligned, then we are able to, the term that I like to use is get more bang for our buck, right? Like if we're doing all the things, we're not really able to optimize the things that help us restore, and in that restorative process we're able to show up as the best version of ourselves. And I think that being able to explore this and do it in a way that is very individualized and supportive, right? Because if the individual is functioning optimally, then it supports the system. And that's really where I come from, looking at things from a systemic point of view as a marriage and family therapist.
Right. So we talk about a systemic point of view. Let's talk about what that means, right? Like it's not just you being aligned, right, with your own, soul's purpose and your own wellness, right? But that also affects like the system with which you live in, right? Your family system, your work system, your community, right? So talk to us a little bit more about that.
Right. So when I started to go through my clinical process, when I started school, there were different philosophies, right? There was the mental health track, marriage and family track, social work track. And the reason why I landed on the one that I did was because of this idea of the systemic point of view, right? Looking at the family systems and all these systems that we exist in, because there's many, and you mentioned a few of them. So this idea of the individual doesn't exist in a bubble, right? We're impacted by those around us, and we impact those around us. Whenever, for example, I have a person come to therapy and they're telling me that they're having marital issues, and they're like, oh, but I can't drag my partner to come, they're against therapy or whatever reasons they bring. What I explain to them is that just by coming as an individual, we are able to impact the system, right? Because if we change the way that we show up, then we create a ripple effect in those around us, right? If I show up differently, you have to respond to me differently. So that creates, we always think that as one person, we can't create that change, right? You hear people say this all the time, oh, but it's just me, but nobody in my family wants to do it. I'm the only one that's interested. And usually the person that's interested in impacting the system is the person that ends up carrying the pathology, right? Because they end up carrying the burden of the system. So I just tell them, if you can show up authentically, then your needs can be met and you can help meet the needs of the people around you. The first place to start is understanding yourself. You'd be surprised how many people come to therapy and they really have no idea who they are, what they want, what lights them up, what they desire to do, who they desire to be. So that seems to be the starting place, and that's how we impact the systems.
Self-discovery, right? Soul alignment, really taking stock of who we are as individuals, but also as like the collective, right? And how one person does impact the system and the world, the collective, right? I definitely believe in personal responsibility. I believe in personal development. I have been an avid student in personal development for well over 20 years. And one of the systems that I've landed upon fairly recently and has really made an impact has been this quantum human design. Can you tell us what is human design?
So human design is relatively new. And what it is, it's a synthesis of Eastern and Western philosophy. So it combines astrology, the Chinese I Ching, the Hindu chakra system, the Kabbalah system, and quantum physics. And through combining and synthesizing all these different philosophies, it came up with what they call an energy blueprint, which shows you how you optimally function from an energetic standpoint, right? Like how you're able to use your energy in a way that is effortless, really, because if you're living in alignment, it shouldn't feel hard, right? Because you're showing up in a way that feels in the flow for you instead of resisting. And when we're all able to do that, then together, there's a lot of individuality in this too. I think a lot of our systems are focused to create kind of like cookie cutter experiences of all of us. And it works for some people if the system was created for that specific energy type, but there are a lot of outliers that then end up struggling and feeling different or feeling like they don't belong. So by having this energy blueprint, I'm able to guide my clients on how to use their energy in a way that makes sense and how to understand the people around them in a way that makes sense so that they can work with them and not against them.
Yeah. So human design isn't like a philosophy or like some theory or like some cult, right? It really is kind of like a logical system that brings together all these different principles and modalities. You know, for people who might be listening who've never heard of human design, what might be the best way to kind of get started understanding, right? Like the different types in human design, for example, you know, overview level.
So the human design, our charts can get very complex and very detailed. But the biggest takeaway for people and where I would start, you know, when I start working with my clients, where I start is just understanding their energy type. There are 5 energy types: generator, manifesting generator, reflector, projector, and manifester. And each energy type shows up differently, right? They function differently. They each have a different role to play within society. And just by understanding how those energies show up and what they need to be able to show up consistently is half the battle. So I can give examples of this. In my own family system, I am a generator. Generators are the builders, right? We have all the energy, we do all the things, we are the workers. As long as we are doing the thing that lights us up, we can literally wake up and hit the ground running and literally fall out at the end of the day, right? And that's how we're designed to function. And we want to work. It is our purpose. My husband is a projector. Projectors are the keepers of wisdom. They are not designed to work the typical 9-to-5 job. And they will burn out Okay, so something that I do want to be clear with in human design is that it's not about we can or cannot do anything. We can all do all of the things, right? The take-home point is that if we do something that is not aligned with us, with who we are, with our energy type, we are probably going to be very unhappy. Right? So it's not that my husband cannot work a 9-to-5. He does work a 9-to-5, but it is not the most conducive type of environment for him to really live out in his authentic highest self, right? So that to me was so mind-blowing to understand, because it allowed me to understand not only the experience he's having working a 9-to-5, but also the experience that we have once he comes home from that 9-to-5, right? And just how he can participate differently in the responsibilities we have as parents and, you know, running a household. And before understanding this, it could lead to a lot of resentment or blaming or just not understanding, like, why is the person showing up differently? And we can attach meanings, and I talk about that a lot, right? How we attach stories to the things that happen. If my husband gets home and he's depleted because literally the energy he has been depleted at his 9-to-5, and he comes home and is not able to do a whole lot at home, I could very easily say he doesn't love us, he's lazy, he doesn't care, right? And see how just those little statements, those little stories, those seeds that I've planted in my mind can create a host of issues in the marital relationship and in the parenting relationship.
And human design helps you to just basically better understand your design, right? And your best way of being efficient with your energy, right? So I'd like to share, the way that I came across human design was kind of unconventional. I was in a Clubhouse room in like December of 2021, I believe. I was in a little bit of a rut, right? I had kind of lost my business, my event planning business due to the pandemic, and I'm really kind of hitting this pause, brand new mom with 2 kids now, and figuring out how I'm going to rebuild. And I was in a Clubhouse room and just sharing how I just felt so burnt out, and I didn't really have, like clarity on like my next step, even though I know what my soul alignment is, right? Or I feel I know what my calling is kindness, right? But how can I really turn this into a business now where I just focus all of my energy on that? And I was sharing this, and the person that was leading the Clubhouse room was like, I think you're a projector. Have you ever heard about, human design and this and that? And I had no idea what she was talking about. And you have very limited amount of time in Clubhouse to like speak and interact. So I just wrote it down. I'm like, human design projector. What's she talking about? Right? I'm thinking about a projector from like, back in the days that you put, overhead projectors in schools. I'm really dating myself here. And yes, that's what I thought. I'm like, what is she talking about? So anyways, then I look into it, and being kind of like the avid student that I am, I went down this rabbit hole. I did my chart, and I'm looking at this super complex, system that just really spoke to me and helped me to understand so much of my experience in life, right, was not aligned. And even though I have always been a high achiever, I feel like I've always been on my purpose to spread kindness and do my volunteer, my philanthropic work, and everything that I've been doing, I've always felt like I was doing the aligned work, but not in the aligned way that was actually sustainable for me to carry out this mission sustainably for the rest of my life, right? So learning that I'm a projector that has her own energy, but that I don't have this consistent flow of energy, and how important rest is to me and my ability to actually show up, for others, was really life-changing. I'm like, what? This was like news to someone who has really worked her butt off her entire life, right? Was raised in a very, immigrant household who believes in hard work, and, there's no rest, right? You work on Sunday, you work all the time. And I was just raised by generators, I guess, right? And I only realized this, I'm about to turn 40, people, well into my 30s.
But projectors typically burn out or between 35 and 40 if they're not doing things in an aligned way.
Well, then I was very much on track, and I did burn out completely there. And I find it to be such a gift. And I'm so grateful to that person that I don't even know who she is, who just mentioned to me, you might, be a projector. Have you looked into this? So that was really the spark and the reason why I asked you to be on the show, right? And to share this, because if we could all just learn a little bit more about ourselves, right? The self-discovery, right? So that we can actually show up in this world like authentically as who we are, and being in alignment with our energy and our strategy for making decisions and all of that. My goodness, not just for you, but like you said, for your family, right? At work. So how can knowing your human design and that of your team at work help us function better?
So the beautiful thing in creating teams using human design is that you can create a team in a way that highlights the skills, like the strengths of each person, right? So if I have, right, let's say you and I were working together. You're a projector, I'm a generator. You were the keeper of wisdom, right? You were probably going to see the areas that need adjustment, that need to be fixed. For example, your mission in wanting to spread kindness, right? Seeing that there's a need for kindness in the world. Myself as a generator, I would come in and be like, oh, Marley, that's great. So you want to do this. Now, how do we how do we create, I can create the work in it, right? Like put the pieces together to build the system or the way of doing it. Now we can get into very specific parts of the chart where it'll explain what are the things that so when we look at specific gates, like what are the things that you bring to the table that are very easy for you to do. So for example, in my chart, I have the channel 3740, which is about community, but also about contracts, which is a lot of the work that I do in relationships, right? Relationships in a sense, it are contracts. They're contracts that we make with other individuals, whether they're spoken or unspoken, right? So one of the things that I'm really good at is seeing how you can create a contract with another person, how you can enter a relationship with another person in a way that is fair and sustainable for all the people involved, right? That it's a win-win situation. So knowing that that is my strength, and I can come to a team and say, this is what I offer, right? This is one example. There are many others within our chart because we have many skills as individuals. And then you can come in and bring your skills to the table, and we're all going to be happy and a well-oiled machine because everybody's doing the thing that feels good for them instead of feeling like they're doing that one thing that I really don't want to do because it doesn't light me up. I mean, sometimes we have to do the thing we don't want to do, right? I want to be clear about that. But when we're doing it as a means to an end, it's different than when this has just become our reality, right? Instead of bringing in the person who is going to be lit up by that so that you can do the part that you're lit up by, because that's where you're going to shine. And when everybody shines, then we create that systemic impact.
Absolutely. It's just so it's been life like transformational to even, and I don't know everything about my chart. I know very kind of like tier 1, level 1 understanding of my human design body graph. And even that at an elementary level has really, really made a big difference. And understanding my children's chart and my husband, who's a generator and I'm a projector, really understanding our dynamic. It just helped so much to just understand, because at the end of the day, don't you just want to feel like understood? Right now, I take rest as like, it's like my divine right is to rest.
It is.
This is like unheard of, right? Like pre Marley Q, a couple, I don't know, 5-6 years ago, rest? Like, no way. And I know that I could, like you said, it's not that I can't perform like a generator. Sure, I can. I have built and achieved and goals and, been on this, hamster wheel of doing my entire life until I totally burnt out and realized this is not sustainable. Like, this is not even like what I want to be doing. It shouldn't feel so hard to show up in life as myself, right? And it just really, really gave me this better understanding of myself and others. I see how it helps within my family system, even bringing it to my work as a leadership trainer when I'm doing team building workshops and retreats. I'm not teaching human design. I'm not like qualified to do that at all, but I definitely see the value in bringing this kind of information and understanding to our workplaces. It's not a personality test. It's not a skills like finder. It is literally a chart of your body graph, and it's based on your birth date and time and the place. Like, for any critics out there, right? Like my husband included, that people that might be like, oh, well, who comes up with, this manifestor and generator and projector and reflectors? Like, who comes up with all of this information? What would you say to my critics out there?
So I mean, I can get into an explanation as to how it came up and how they did it. And it gets very like scientific when you look at, even the concept of understanding astrology. Before, I never fully understood, like, okay, so they get your birth time, your birth information. How do they come up with this information? And there is an explanation behind it. But I think rather than getting into the explanation of how they came up with it, what I would say to somebody that asked me that question, your husband included, is experience human design. I have not met somebody yet that has not experienced it, at least been open to having their chart looked at, that has not had this information provided to them and has had the reaction of, God, I feel seen, probably for the first time ever, right? And I think in that experience of feeling seen, the rest of the stuff doesn't really matter, right? It doesn't really matter how they came up with it. It just matters that it is almost like you're wearing like a blindfold, and all of a sudden this blindfold falls off and you're like, there I am. Like, for the first time I see my reflection in the mirror and I have an understanding of who I am, because that was when I had my first human design reading. So I've always been very aligned. So there was one thing about my reading that felt good, that I was like, yes, I'm aligned, right? I'm very aligned with my strategy, my type. But more than anything, it was this idea of it all resonates. And when I saw that it all resonated, I was like, pull my kids' charts, pull my husband's chart, pull everybody's chart. And in seeing their charts, there was also a deep understanding of who they are, because I was already seeing it. I didn't need anybody to prove it to me. I didn't need anybody to explain to me how this was real, because it was automatically a tool that I knew that I could use to shift the dynamic of my family. And around the time, maybe a little bit before I discovered this, we were going through a hard time as a family. I mean, there were conversations of possibly separating. We were struggling in our relationship and parenting. There was so much going on. And once I was able to receive this information, it completely changed the way that I viewed the family dynamic, my family dynamic. So if somebody wants to sit down and get into the history, I can provide them with resources on how it got here and why it is backed by science, right? But I think even if I did that, it would feel so complex that the question wouldn't really be answered for the person. So what I would say is that they really need to just experience it and then decide for themselves.
I love that. I love that because first, this, I keep every episode under 30 minutes. So there's definitely no time to get into all of that. So I appreciate, kind of like the step one, because one of the things that I love about, human design and is that it's practical. Like I'm a very practical person. And what I realized and what I loved about human design is that it was very practical, straightforward advice. And it is about experimenting with your design, right? So just what you said, just to emphasize it maybe in a different way, rather than for me, it's been completely life-changing to understand that my strategy for protecting my energy so that I stop burning out, which was a continual thing in my life, migraines, burnout, events, big goal achieved, migraine, burnout. Okay, build myself back up again. Over and over and over again. I've been an entrepreneur for almost 15 years. And man, learning that the way that I can actually protect my energy is to wait for the invitation, right? So not always think that I need to be the spark. Wanted you to share with us a little bit, if it can serve as the spark to have somebody go down the path of discovering their body graph, their human design, seeing how that relates or resonates with you. Start the experiment, and if it doesn't resonate with you, then it doesn't. But I think even for the biggest critics, with love you can't dismiss, right, the power in self-discovery, right? And the power that exists in just knowing who you are and being able to show up in life, at work, in the world as that being, right?
And it creates a platform or a foundation for love and acceptance, right? And when we come from a place of love and acceptance and couple that with the kindness, there's so much power in that. And it's only in our individuality and our authenticity that we can really explore that.
Absolutely. Cynthia, thank you so much for taking time out of your day and your work day to spend it with us. I appreciate you making time to be kind. And I will make sure to share all of your links to your website and to your social media. In order to unite as one mankind. My mission with this podcast and all the work